Right, a little bit more on this fiberglass tank. This is off the Continental GT, Royal Enfield. Now, we've spoken about fiberglass tanks before. And the standard, these were fiberglass, and we've got the issue now with ethanol in the fuel, unless you're lucky enough to find the ones that haven't got it in. So we need to protect this tank. Now this one has started to delaminate. What I mean by that is the layers of fiberglass can start to break down, it becomes porous. What's happened is petrol has come from the inside out. So it's lifted this. Now I had this happen on a race tank I explained to you a long time ago on a Honda. So what we're going to do, we've got this tank sealer. Now this tank sealer is used with metal tanks and with fiberglass tanks. What we need to do today is, this is bone dry inside. We're going to coat this with half the contents. We've got this other tank here to do, which is off another bike of his, but that's still got some residue of petrol in, so I need to get all that out first. You can clean these tanks out with a cleaner flush, and with a steel tank it will have an etch that would go in there which would attack the rust. Being fiberglass, we don't need to do that. So it's nice and clean. So what we're going to do is just put half the contents in here. So first of all, what you need to do is remove your petrol tap. I've taken this one out already. Find a bolt or something that's going to screw into there, the same thread. What is a good idea is use a little bit of grease so the sealer won't get into the thread of the insert in the tank. So we just use a little bit of this and we just screw it in. Don't go right in too far. That only goes that far because it's got a restriction inside there, because you need to be able to get that out. And the other thing we need to do is, when we put the contents in here, we need a bit of plastic. So just get a bag, because you're going to have to invert this upside down, shake it and try and cover all the tank. So that would be just sealed like that, and it saves it getting into the seal and leaking out through the top. Put a pair of gloves on. Now I did shake this. I'm just going to give it a bit of a stir around. I think it's best to do that always. This is one of the better ones on the market. There are different people supplying tank sealers, but I found this one works the best. This is supposed to cope with ethanol ratings much harder than what we have at the moment.
Use any screwdriver to stir it, Dave?
Yeah, not your best one normally. So find something that's more practical and don't make a mess on the bench when you wipe it off. Right, so just pour half the contents into the tank. Now that should pour fairly easily. And this is what you find now. Let's see where we are. Just a bit more. This is why I say wear gloves, because you can just wipe the lip, because if you don't get it off the lip, when you put the lid back on, it'll stick to it. Now this sealer, we're going to slosh it around and cover as much as we can of this tank. So we put the plastic over the top. That should keep most of it in there, and all you need to do is just work it around. So all you're doing is just coating the tank as even as possible. So we do this and we check it after a few minutes. Just have a look in there just to see if we're getting into the top first. As you can see now, we're getting white covering. So we're just going to, the only trouble you have to be careful is the plastic, we don't actually get a hole in the top. Need to put it upside down. Okay, so I've been moving that around for the last few minutes, and now I think we can actually drain off the excess, if there is any. Because what they recommend you do is you put the contents into a tank, swirl it around, and decant back into the can. Because I've done several tanks of this now, this product, and I know roughly how much the tank would take to cover it. So we're doing 2 tanks, so I've only put half in. So I don't expect to get very much to come back out to put into the can. So just remove the lid, have a look inside, and just have a look round and make sure with a torch that we've covered it. And you should be able to see, really, we're looking.
A bit.
Well, this inside, if you look down this side, this will, yeah, we've got a few places where we need, I don't think there'd be any excess to come off. We can see it moving in the bottom, but because we've got some damage here, we need to puddle this a little bit more in this corner. But that's covering fairly well.
I could see a bit in here.
Yeah, there it's got to go. Yeah, so we're going to just... And if there's any excess, which there won't be with this tank, it does say carry on doing this for really sort of like 15 minutes or more, a bit longer if you can, because if there are any places where it's not covered, and now it's getting slower to move around because there's not so much that's excess now in the tank, so it's holding on to the surface area, so probably that's why you need to cover it fairly quickly. So you're going to have to work around with that little bit that's still moving around to cover. So they do recommend that this will take up to 72 hours to cure off, possibly longer this time of year because it's colder and there's moisture in the air. So for it to cure, you leave your bottom bolt in where your fuel tank will be and just remove the top and let it breathe. That's all we need to do. Just going to see if we've covered now. What you can do, and I do it sometimes, get a paintbrush and move it around with a paintbrush. I think if we look inside now, I think it's fairly good. If I move that around so you can see, you don't need a big coating in these tanks, just as long as it's covered. Now hopefully that will do the job. What we do, this other tank, they'll have the same process done later, but there's still a little bit of petrol, so we'll need to slosh that out with a cleaner first. But like I said, don't just leave it like that, just move it around a bit later on. Don't need to put the plastic over the top because nothing's going to come out now. But that will work, that will do the job. A little bit more on the Royal Enfield, just to fill you in. We've shown you the bike running the other day with a new carburettor. We've actually got the cables connected up now to the twist grip. We had a new tacho cable, and on the bench there is the tacho itself, the clock, because we had an issue. Just take my gloves off. We put the new cable on, started the bike up, and the cable twitched and it threw out the drive from the casing. And I should have checked this one, because we found when the bike came in it got no innard to the cable, no drive cable. This is a clock itself. I've got an old bit of cable here which I use sometimes. I can put this in and I put grips on this and it's sea solid. So hopefully he's got a spare clock because he's got bits and pieces, or we had to send this clock away to get it refurbished. But I did notice that this bike, it should have a pilot light and it's been blanked off. There'd be a bulb inserted in there to illuminate the dial, and same with the speedo. So we have to sort that out. But the tank, I say today, that will be done, and sometime next week, hopefully the end of next week, we can have the tank back on. And if we have another tacho for it, rev counter, we'll have that fitted and the bike will be finished. Runs well, as you heard, and yeah, so that's work in progress. It's coming on quite well. Got some new bikes coming in next week. We've got a Cami Villa set, and I think we've got another Triumph that we're going to have to take the engine down on, so that'll be a good one. Complete engine strip down. We've done Triumphs before, but this one is a unit construction Triumph engine, so it'll be quite nice to see and see how easy they are to work on. Okay, so we've been talking about the sealer from this supplier. If the tank is like, well, most tanks are going to have it like gum inside and residue and rest of it. This is the gas tank. It's American, obviously a product. This is a cleaner, so you put this in the tank first, swirl it around, work it like I have been with the sealer, then drain it back off, dry the tank. But if the tank is heavily rusted, with a metal tank this is, use a thing called an etch. And the idea of the etch, if it's rusty, it will react with the rust. It's an acid, so it will turn that rust into like a black coating. So they should stabilise that rust and, you know, seal it really, basically. So that's quite good, but you need to use these products with a steel tank, not with a fiberglass tank. We can use this one if it's really gummy and horrible, but these two tanks, this one had been used, so I need to just probably use a bit of that tank flush to get a little bit of petrol out. The other one has been dry for years. But it's a good product, it does work, and yeah, I've had good results from that. So I think, yeah, this is the sort of thing you do need to make sure that if you have a fiberglass tank, if you can't get the ethanol-free fuels, you do need to use something like this, or you will damage your tank. And yeah, it's a thing that we have to live with now, I'm afraid. But yeah, but it's not a bad job to do. But wear a pair of gloves, really. What I meant to say just now, in the process of repairing a tank, now a steel tank, it's good to apply probably to a fiberglass. Now, if you had a hole in a metal tank, they supplied this putty, which does go off fairly quickly. So you could actually repair on the outside if there's a hole first, then put the sealer in. I think the idea is to plug the hole really, and after you've used this, you rub it right down and leave it there, but it's just to get into the metalwork from the outside the tank. But that does come with the kit as well. So you can either buy the product with just a sealer, or you buy the whole kit that's got the cleaner, and it's got the etch, and it's got the putty. So it's a good product. Yeah, it's worth a go. These two Triumphs here, we've had these from Triumph, from Hinckley, and they've been on loan to us. We have the Speed Twin here, 1200, lovely bit of kit, and we've ridden it. Several of us have ridden this bike in the dry and in the wet, and we have also the Scrambler 1200, which at the moment is nice and clean. Did give this a bit of a clean this morning. Thoroughly enjoy riding that. Lovely piece of kit, and thanks Triumph for being, you know, able to let us have these bikes and hopefully show you what now is available out there. It's such a range of motorcycles. You're so lucky really, because Triumph will suit everyone's pocket, I think, and also their desire of motorcycle, whether it's sports bike or whether it's, you know, Scrambler. The retro bikes are out there, but yeah, good range of motorcycles and good build quality, good machine. So yeah, things are happening in the workshop, so keep you posted.